Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. Going to have a look at where next week to 10 days. Today's video is taking us to around the 28th of July. So we're going to go almost to the end of the month with this update. So we've got a heat wave going on right now, and that's going to peak tomorrow when we could get up over 90 Fahrenheit. There'll be a risk of thunderstorms then, and then it'll start to cool down a bit as we get through to the end of the week and into the weekend. And we'll pick up the story beyond that for today's video as we look ahead into sort of the weekend and next week's weather pattern. So before I get on with that, just to say about the ads at Gasworth, it says links to articles on the page. Have a browse widgets and click through the links. You'll be helping us to pay for our website, and thanks very much for doing that. More importantly, we're raising money for the Warwickshire and Northamptonshire Air Ambulance, and we've raised, since we've been running this, and we started on the 4th of July, so we've been running it since the start of the month, and we've raised so far £764.54, and a big thank you to the 47 people that have donated very, very kindly to our charity appeal. This is really beyond anything I was expecting when I started this. I started with a target of just £200, but we'd probably struggle to reach that. We blitzed that on the first day, and here we are at £764, and it's still going up. There's been another £5 added earlier today. The new target is £1,000. I'm hoping we'll be able to get to £1,000 by the end of the month. This is running until the last day of July, so it's still a little while to go if you want to donate to this, and I'm hoping we'll be able to get to that £1,000 target. Let's keep our fingers crossed. But if you want to donate, then all you have to do is two ways of doing it. Go to our Just Giving page. I'll leave the link in the description box at YouTube. And there's also links across Gasworth. So click on that, you'll go to our Just Giving page, which is this just here. This is the Gasworth's Just Giving page, and you'll know it's our page because it's got our logo there with Gavin's page as well. And to donate, you just click this yellow button that says donate, and then you go through to another page and very securely put in your card details, and that's how you donate via the Just Giving page. You can also text your donation, and to do that one, all you have to do is text our code, which is GWVS77, and the amount you'd like to donate can be anything from £1 upwards. Text that to 770, and if you pay as you go, then the amount that you want to donate will just be taken off your balance. If you pay by a bill, then it'll go on to your next bill cycle. Don't forget to get the bill pay special, of course, before you do that one. So a big thank you to everybody that's donated. The Air Ambulance is completely reliant on charitable donations. They don't get any funding from the National Health Service or taxation. So everything from a helicopter all the way down to smallest plasters and all things in between has to be paid for. And I just asked if you enjoy what we do at Gasworth. Everything is free of charge, of course. The videos have always been free, written posts are free. Terry Scully's updates, monthly updates, they're all for free as well. And that's the way we'll be staying. And I just ask that if you enjoy what we do at Gasworth, then you make this little donation to the Air Ambulance on our behalf. And a big thank you to everybody for doing that. Right, let's get on with the video then. I'm going to start off with the 500 millibar height anomalies for next week to 10 days. Orange, red colours here, extrapolate to high pressure, blue to low pressure. Got the ECWF on the top, and the GFS is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is an area in the absolute high pressure, and low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. These are the mean flow charts for the next week to 10 days. So this will take us up to the 28th of July. So we find that we've got an area of high pressure on the ECWF across the northern latitudes. We've got a bit of a blocking feature there, and as you very often find in summer, when you have a blocking area of high pressure to the north, you'll tend to get a corresponding trough of low pressure underneath it, and that is being placed more or less over top of the country. So despite this little mini heat wave that we're having at the moment and a fair amount of settled weather, this is actually pretty grim chart for summer. This would be quite cool and quite unsettled as well. It does imply a very marked deterioration taking place as we get through the weekend and into next week, if that's right, with the temperatures taking a bit of a tumble and quite a lot of rain coming through as well. Now, the GFS is not as bad as that. This is the GFS, and it does still have above average heights to the north, and especially centering them around Greenland. They tie in with a ridge in the Atlantic, but there's also this ridge across Central Europe, and I think the flow here is doing something a little bit like that. So it is more changeable than we've got at the moment, but it isn't as unsettled, it isn't as cool as we see from the ECMWF. Nevertheless, they are both implying that after this little mini heat wave, we probably turn it cooler and more unsettled as we get through the weekend and into next week. Now, these are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next 2 weeks. Let's deal with the temperatures. First of all, the red line here is the 30-year temperature average. And look how significantly above average we're going over the next couple of days. We're going to around 20 Celsius at 850 HPA there at the peak of this mini heat wave tomorrow. Now, that's very hot air indeed. When you get the 20 Celsius isotherm coming into the UK, it probably implies temperatures are going to get close to 35 degrees, so into the mid-90s Fahrenheit. Now, that is for the far south of the country. This is the ensemble for London. As you go further north, of course, you won't get that intensity of heat. But if you remember the little heat wave that we had last year, just going off a little bit of a tangent here. If you remember the heat wave that we had last July, I think it was on the 30th of June and then the 1st of July, we had a very intense heat wave push up from Spain, and then it went, and it never really got hot again through that summer. This looks very, very similar to that. I'm not saying we won't get hot again, but the way this is pushing the temperatures up very extremely, that is quite an extreme temperature. It's very rare to see 20 Celsius at 850 HPA getting into the UK. It doesn't happen all that often. So to get this two summers running, and in the same sort of way, with just a sudden surge of heat, a heat surge if you like, and then rapidly cooling off, to do that 2 years running is quite unusual really, and quite rare. So just thought I'd throw that in. I got off on a bit of a tangent with that one. But anyway, it is very similar to what happened at the start of July last year. But you see, it doesn't last very long at all. By the time you get through to the weekend, dates on the bottom of the chart, of course, by the time you get into the weekend, temperatures are going back towards the long-term seasonal average. And then there's no real sign after that of anything particularly hot coming up. Just keep the temperatures close to the seasonal average, which of course in July it's going to be warm. Even average temperatures are going to be warm, or perhaps even very warm for the south, but no sign of a return to that intense heat that we've got on the way tomorrow. In terms of precipitation, a lot of dry weather coming up for the south for the rest of this week into weekend and next week. We have got some precipitation spikes. You wouldn't necessarily say that's a very wet spell at all, but it certainly looks a little bit more changeable over weekend and into next week. Keep in mind, this is the ensemble for London, so let's just try somewhere like Manchester and see how the precipitation is looking for tomorrow. And you see much more precipitation coming through there. With this spike in temperature tomorrow, we've also got a spike in precipitation. So the thunderstorm risk is still implied to be to the north and west tomorrow, less so for the south and to the southeast as well. Have a look at the temperature anomalies of the coming week. This is going from the 18th through to 26th of July. Going to be warmer than average. You expect that because we're starting off with very hot temperatures indeed, especially in the south of the country. It's going to be a warm week, as it is for most of Europe. Precipitation generally above average to the north and west, dry than average to the south and east. This is very much reliant on the thunderstorms that's coming up later tomorrow into tomorrow night and then through into Wednesday, which means that the north and west has quite a wet week. The south and east tends to be dry. I'll have a look at the storm risk on Stormwatch this evening, by the way. So this is the GFS chart for Friday. All of that heat is gone by then, and we're in this sort of slack, showery, westerly type flow, and that continues into the weekend as well. Now, we do keep some ridging close to the south of the country over weekend, so always driest in the south, but more unsettled in the north. This is back to the pattern of the summer, really, which is driest conditions to the south, wettest to the north. Temperatures perhaps are average or maybe a little bit above average, but not intensely hot as it will be tomorrow. Into start of next week, and again we keep a ridge close to the south, more unsettled up to the north, and then through the week we start to find low pressure beginning to develop out to the west. So even by Thursday next week, this is Thursday 28th of July, we are keeping a fairly high pressure sort of gradient to the south of the country. This low pressure is developing up to the north and west, and then eventually slips in by the end of next week. But I think for the south of the country it could be reasonably dry and warm for next week as well, with most of the conditions remaining for much of the week in the north. That's the GFS. Now remember, from the high-to-anomaly chart, the ECM is more unsettled with this for next week. So we're going to start on Friday again, where we're in a slack sort of showery westerly flow. Through next weekend, pressure remains fairly high to the south. It's lower to the north, so it implies over weekend the south gets the driest conditions. The north and west tend to be most unsettled. But into next week, this is a bit of a change compared to the GFS, where this low pressure coming down from the country. Remember, at this point, early next week, the GFS still has the Azores High extending a ridge to the south of the country, whereas the ECM brings this low pressure down through the country. So I think that would bring showers or longer spells of rain across many parts of the country through the early part of next week. And then through the week, we just stay unsettled, really. This is how we go up to day 10. Very much in a low pressure controlled setup. The centre of low pressure to the north of Scotland. But you see it's quite clearly more unsettled here at day 10 compared to the GFS day 10 chart, which looks like that. Clearly the ECM is the most unsettled of the two. So what we can say quite definitively is that we're going to get this very intense heat surge coming up tomorrow, very much along the lines of what happened on the 1st of July last year, but it goes, as it did last year, it goes quite quickly in the second half of the week. It'll cool down back closer to average, and then it just looks gently unsettled, I would think, for the weekend and into next week, with showery conditions mostly in the north, the driest weather always in the south. And then maybe there's hints there that by the time we get through to the latter stages of next week, we might see a more general change back to unsettled conditions, with maybe spells of rain coming across many parts of the country. But I'm not seeing anything overly dramatic in terms of unsettled conditions next week at this stage. But that's how it's looking for today's update. Anyway, later on we'll have a look at Stormwatch. We did Stormwatch last night. The implied risk was for the north and west. We'll see whether that's the case for tonight. Reading between the lines of what we've been looking at, particularly the GFS ensemble, I think that's still mainly the case. But we will have a look at Stormwatch this evening. Right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.